This amazing orphan's touching connection with a billionaire, surprising truth exposed. Emma watched the leaves swirl outside the cafe window, a crisp golden hue heralding the change of seasons. Life had a way of shifting. She knew that better than most. Hunched over her latest architectural sketch, the weight of her loneliness surrounded her like a blanket. The whimsical outlines of local buildings filled the page, each curve and angle a tribute to the father she lost. In a small Midwestern town where opportunity felt light years away, Emma was an orphan amid petty rivalries and whispered gossip, always the underdog, fighting against the tide. But there was one beacon of light today, Thomas Walsh. He wandered into the cafe, a blend of confidence and quiet desperation, eyes scanning the walls until they landed on her art. In a heartbeat, he was drawn to her sketches, his interest like freshly fallen rain on parched earth. Every line she traced echoed memories of her dad and the dreams they had shared. As their conversation unfolded, Emma felt a connection she'd seldom known. Their exchanges illuminated their similar struggles, spawning a bond as unexpected as it was profound. But with each meeting came an undercurrent of skepticism. The townsfolk whispered, exchanging glances over coffee cups, questioning their unlikely friendship. Emma felt it creeping into her mind, stoking her insecurities. Did anyone really care about her talent, or was it merely a spectacle because of the man beside her? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the words faded in her mind, Emma's heart raced with uncertainty. The delicate balance of trust she'd built with Thomas felt threatened. Every compliment imbued with doubt. What would happen if he faltered? The internal debate clawed at her. Defend Thomas amidst a brewing storm of judgment, or retreat and shield her ambitions? Then came the day she learned of his scandal. With whispers swirling about deceit and dubious practices linking him to an unjust inheritance, her skin prickled with fear. This man who saw promise in her was now drowning in a tide of shame. Emma wrestled with disbelief and anger, her thoughts spiraling into a chasm of morals and dreams. She could picture it, the community's icy gaze shifting from admiration of her sketches to scorn, judgments crystallizing above her like stones. Would her name forever be tied to his? She fought against the desperation coiling within her chest, but the anguish surged when the very foundation of her hard work stood threatened by his past. What was loyalty worth? Would supporting Thomas serve her dream, or lead her into a pit she couldn't escape? These questions weighed heavily, the tension pulsating thicker with each passing moment. Just when the fog seemed clear enough to the side, a rival from her past emerged, echoing doubts and bringing revelations that shattered the precarious balance she'd maintained. Emma's breath hitched. Would she stand firm in her beliefs or crumble under pressure? With her mind racing and darkness swirling, she was faced with a truth so raw it made her entire future tremble. Would she stand for what she believed in, or become just another story lost in the complexities of privilege and perseverance? Emma stared out the cafe window, the swirling leaves now feeling emblematic of her chaotic thoughts. Her heart raced as she recalled the stir of hushed voices, the glances that had reinforced her insecurities. She was trapped in a fragile dance between her emotions and the community's perception, where every step seemed to risk her dignity. With trembling fingers, she set her sketchbook aside, contemplating the looming question that gnawed at her. Was it right to stand by Thomas? The scandal surrounding him felt like oily fingers clawing at her dreams, threatening to smother her ambition. She recalled their conversations, how Thomas's insights had turned the world of architecture into a playground of ideas. Yet now those memories were tangled in shadows. He'd illuminated her path, yes, but could she afford to carry the burden of association with someone whose reputation hung by a thread? Fingers brushing against her sketch of an intricate building, she pondered the task ahead. She ached to distill her frustration and confusion into her art, to transform pain into creativity. Architecture was more than drawings. It was an expression, her expression. In the depths of her being, she sensed her artistic capability was the only anchor left that could stabilize her in this storm. Determined to confront her inner doubts, Emma decided to speak with Thomas, to hear his side of the story directly. She could no longer allow speculation to rule her thoughts. The setting sun cast a golden glow on the town as she stepped outside, her resolve fortified by an urgency to unveil the truth. Arriving at the office that Thomas operated from downtown, Emma felt a mixture of trepidation and anticipation. The vibrant chatter inside, juxtaposed with her racing pulse, amplified her sense of urgency. She pushed through the door, her heart hammering. Thomas looked up, his expression shifting from surprise to concern. "Emma, I'm glad you're here," he greeted, his voice wavering beneath the weight of his recent scandal. "Thomas, we need to talk," she interrupted, firm yet cautious. He gestured towards a quiet corner away from prying eyes. As they sat, she sensed the tension in the air, a magnet of unresolved emotions. "What do you really know about the accusations?" she pressed, holding his gaze steady.
He hesitated, fingers fidgeting with the edge of his desk. "I can't explain everything now," he started, his voice charged with a mix of fear and determination. "But I can tell you that I didn't fall into this. It's much more complicated. Complicated or not, you've put me in a position I didn't ask for," Emma replied, a flash of anger fueling her words. Each sentence sliced through the silence, revealing the fragility of their newfound bond. "I always believed in your talent, Emma. I saw potential in you that no one else did," he pleaded. "But this can destroy what you've built. I would never want to tarnish that." The conflicting emotions swirled within her. Here was a moment where her conscience collided with the prospect of a future she could shape. The notion of sacrifice weighed heavily against her aspirations. And yet, she felt a fire igniting in her heart. In her pursuit of authenticity, she needed to know what the truth was. "Then tell me the truth. I deserve that much," she urged, leaning closer, desperate but resolute. The room hung heavy with expectation, and she could sense the pivot of their relationship hang in the balance. The moment felt charged, as if all her efforts and emotions had coalesced at this juncture. And then, as Thomas began to share his side of the story, Emma realized she was stepping into a world of revelations that could change everything. Would his answers strengthen her resolve, or shatter their bond beyond repair? But just as Thomas opened his mouth, the door swung open violently, startling them both, revealing a figure from Emma's past that made her blood run cold. The stakes were rising, and so were the unanswered questions surrounding her future with Thomas. What awaited her on the other side of this confrontation, and was she truly ready for the consequences? The woman who entered was a specter of Emma's history, a chapter she had thought closed. Charlotte's presence sliced through the tension, her carefully composed features exuding an unsettling confidence. Emma's pulse quickened as fragmented memories surged, how Charlotte had always been a thorn in her side, a reminder of her own insecurities. The way Charlotte had belittled her dreams, dismissed her talent as childish frivolity. Now here, in this charged moment, she felt exposed, standing between her past and her uncertain future with Thomas. "Emma," Charlotte drawled, her tone dripping with feigned friendliness, "I didn't expect to find you here with Thomas." Her eyes danced with mischief as she glanced between the two. "Charlotte," Emma replied through gritted teeth, forcing herself to maintain a composure that felt increasingly thin. For a heartbeat, all thoughts of the impending revelations were drowned out by the sound of Charlotte's presence, the relentless scrutiny, the waves of judgment. It was as if a cold draft had blown into the room, stirring doubts. "Is Thomas pulling you into his latest escapade?" Charlotte's emphasis on the word was calculated, a jab wrapped in a veneer of concern. You know how these people operate. Emma's breath hitched, anger bubbling beneath the surface. She was teetering on the edge of a precipice, feeling her confidence erode. "I'm here on my own terms," she shot back, her voice firmer than she felt. "Are you certain? Because it seems you're only here to be the latest pawn in his game," Charlotte persisted. Thomas's expression darkened as he shifted in his seat, the tension thickening between all three of them. Emma turned to him, searching for a sign of support, yet found uncertainty reflected in his eyes. Just then she realized this was no longer about Thomas's scandal. This was about reclaiming her own narrative, her power. Emma glanced back at Charlotte and decided to face her head-on. "What do you want, Charlotte?" A smirk curved Charlotte's lips. "Oh, come now. Aren't you curious about what else is being said in our circles? About the details of Thomas's downfall? You might want to reconsider your association." Each word stung, reminding Emma of her vulnerability, of how quickly her aspirations could be snuffed out by the whispers of others. It also ignited a flicker of defiance within her. "I refuse to let you dictate my relationships. If you have something to say, say it. Otherwise, leave." Charlotte's amusement faltered momentarily, a flicker of surprise flashing across her eyes before she retreated, feigning casualness. "I'm merely looking out for you, dear. I wouldn't want the world to see an architect crumble at the feet of an untrustworthy man." The mention of her aspirations felt like a direct hit. Emma was acutely aware of the gravity of her choices, the fragile foundation of her developing identity. She had once been afraid of taking risks, of stepping out from her own shadow, but now a swell of determination surged within her. She would not crumble. Not here, not now. As Charlotte retreated, Emma turned her full attention back to Thomas. The weight of decisions loomed overhead, pressing on her shoulders, but she could feel the flames of resolve reigniting. "I need to know where we stand, Thomas," she said, her voice steadying. "What are you really facing?" He searched her eyes for understanding. "It's not just my reputation on the line, Emma. It's yours, too, should you choose to stand by me." The stakes amplified in that moment, and so did the thrill of possibility. Emma felt the urge to conjure her art, to channel this experience into her designs, honest, raw expressions of her journey. She wanted to embody the resilience she saw growing within herself, turning fear into creativity. But could she truly navigate the complexity of their relationship, knowing what lay ahead? With Charlotte's words echoing in her mind, Emma grappled with the choice of love or ambition, of loyalty or self-preservation. As the door swung shut behind Charlotte, sealing her away, Emma took a deep breath. "Tell me everything, Thomas," she implored, knowing full well they were teetering at the edge of discovery. She needed his truth, and with it came the potential to redefine her trajectory, possibly painting a future they could craft together, if they dared. And as he began to speak again, Emma felt herself standing at another crossroads, where every choice could lead her into new realms of revelation. What secrets would unfold, and were they ready to confront the reality of their intertwined fates? The air hung thick with unspoken words as Emma studied Thomas, her heart racing. His fidgeting posture suggested a man wrestling with demons, and she felt the weight of his revelations burdened by impending consequences. "Emma," he began, his voice laced with anxiety, "things aren't as simple as they seem." Her instinct was to tug him toward candor, to plumb the depths of his secrets, but fear danced behind her resolve. What if his darkness threatened the light she was starting to claim for herself? "I'm listening," she replied, determined to maintain her stance, her voice steady. Thomas leaned forward, the shadows of his past hanging heavily between them. "There are decisions I've made, people I've been involved with, that could jeopardize everything." The tension in his words was palpable, resonating deeply within Emma.
Beneath his veneer of confidence hid the same vulnerabilities she had battled with all her life. "Like Charlotte?" she interjected, her eyes piercing into him. "What have you done to provoke her?" The name felt like a jagged stone rolling off her tongue. A flicker of vulnerability crossed Thomas's features, and in that moment, Emma saw how they were both architects of their circumstances, one with a penchant for yielding to pressure, the other for defying it. "No," he admitted, relief mingling with regret. "Charlotte isn't the problem. She's a symptom of the chaos I've courted." Each confession was a thread unraveling the tapestry of the facade he had maintained. Emma's resolve wavered, her identity teetering on the brink of his truth. This was her moment of choice. Did she embrace the discomfort of connection or retreat into self-preservation? "You need to be honest, Thomas," Emma urged, leaning closer, her voice a mix of challenge and encouragement. "What specifically are we dealing with? Because if what you're hiding is the end of us, then I deserve to know." The hesitation on his face told her more than his words ever could. He needed a springboard, a leap of faith back into vulnerability, to emerge stronger. But like a tightrope walker teetering in shifting winds, she feared losing her balance. "A few weeks back, I was approached by investors," he confessed, the weight of his words filling the air. "They have been involved in some illegal dealings. I didn't see it until it was too late, and now they're looking to hold me accountable, potentially tarnishing my name, and yours." The revelation struck Emma like a thunderbolt, shaking the firm ground upon which she had begun to build her aspirations. A rush of disbelief wrestled with the clarity of his admission. "You mean to tell me your entire career is at stake because of an association? A reckless decision?" He nodded slowly, shame etched on his features. "And in involving you further, I'm bringing you into that chaos. It's not just my reputation anymore." Something ignited deep within her, a fierce fire coursing through her veins. It sparked a fierceness she had struggled to acknowledge. "You can't assume my fate, Thomas. I'm not a fragile bird waiting for permission to fly." The truth was dawning, illuminating a path she had not previously considered. Emma realized she had a decision to make. Would she stand beside him in this storm, or would she retreat into her comfort zone? A voice within questioned what loyalty meant, especially if success would demand a sacrifice. Another nudged her toward the unknown, an invitation to redefine success on her own terms. "You're right," Thomas replied, a new spark in his eyes, the hope of partnership flickering. "We can face this together, but what I need from you is more than mere presence. I need your strength. Will you take that leap with me?" Emma felt the gravity of his plea resonate, urging her forward, propelling her into uncharted territory. For the first time, it wasn't merely his future at stake, it was hers as well. The emotional landscape beneath her was shifting, and every desire she nurtured now seemed to intertwine with his past lapses in judgment. "Let's clear the air," she said, feeling the tension settle into determination. "Find out what they want and how to protect both of us." She could almost taste the creativity bubbling beneath her surface, ready to be channeled into action and solution. But as they began to strategize, a nagging voice whispered reminders of Charlotte's presence. The machinations of a rival intent on disruption haunted the edges of their resolve. What consequences awaited on the horizon? Emma steeled herself, ready to confront not just the foes outside, but also the burgeoning fears within. The uncertainty ahead loomed, challenging her newfound sense of agency. And just as they prepared to dive deeper into their plan, an unexpected knock echoed through the room, jolting their attention. Emma's pulse quickened. What new turmoil lay just beyond that door? Emma's breath hitched in her throat. The knock echoed again, more insistent this time, a reminder that the world outside their bubble of focus was still alive with complications. She exchanged a tense glance with Thomas, whose apprehension mirrored her own. The stakes had never been higher, and any disruption could shatter their fragile alliance. As she rose to answer the door, Emma's thoughts were a whirlpool of possibilities. Who stood on the other side? Would this intrusion be a threat or an opportunity? Her fingers brushed against the cool doorknob, a stark contrast to the heat pooling in her chest. She twisted it, opening the door to a figure she never expected. Charlotte. The sight of Thomas's former partner framed in the doorway sent a cascade of emotions through Emma. Curiosity danced with irritation as
she recalled the woman's veiled threats. Charlotte's presence felt like a dark storm cloud looming over their fragile resolution. "Emma," Charlotte said, her voice disarmingly sweet. "Thomas." Her eyes flitted between them, assessing, calculating. "I hope I'm not interrupting." The sardonic edge in her tone was unmistakable. "Actually, you are," Emma replied, attempting to mask the tension wrapping around her words. Anger surged in her veins, but she held firm. This was her moment to solidify her place, not just as a partner to Thomas, but as a force of her own. "Oh, come on," laughed Charlotte, stepping forward, her confidence spilling into the room like a contagious toxin. "Your little tête-à-tête couldn't possibly be that important. I just came to discuss an outstanding matter with Thomas." She leaned in, her gaze fixating on him, a predator gauging its prey. Thomas's discomfort was palpable. "Charlotte, whatever this is, can it wait? We're in the middle of—" "Shut it," she interrupted, raising a hand dismissively. "What I have to discuss can't wait, and neither can your reputation, Thomas. You've made some interesting bedfellows, haven't you?" Her smile faded as she leveled her gaze on Emma. "And you, dear, should consider that the company you keep can define you." Emma breathed deeply, struggling to rein in the emotional turmoil. It was as if Charlotte had ripped away the security Emma had built, exposing her greatest fears. Who was she in this drama? A mere bystander, or was she capable of evolving into something more formidable? "Enough of the theatrics, Charlotte," Emma shot back, her voice steady but laced with bravado. "If you think intimidation is your only tool, you're sadly mistaken." A glint of surprise flickered in Charlotte's eyes, but it quickly transformed into disdain. "You're playing a dangerous game. You have no idea what you're dealing with." "Neither do you," Emma retorted, her resolve hardening. "I'm not here to be your pawn." In that moment, Emma felt a surge of strength. She was tired of being sidelined. This confrontation could be a turning point, and she was ready to step onto the stage, bearing the weight of her choices, not just Thomas's. Charlotte paused, scanning Emma's face as if searching for cracks, for weakness, anything to exploit. "Well then, let's see how long you last in this little game." With that, she turned, casting a final, icy glance at Thomas before leaving. As the door clicked shut, Emma felt a rush of adrenaline. They were not just defending a reputation anymore. They were forging a path through tangled relationships, and she was no longer just Thomas's accomplice. She was a player. "You handled that well," Thomas murmured, surprise evident in his voice. Emma shrugged, a hint of pride weaving through her internal chaos. "We have to be strong, together." But beneath her newfound confidence lay a growing realization. Charlotte was not merely a rival. She was an embodiment of the fears Emma hadn't yet addressed. "Let's get back to planning," she urged, steeling herself for the challenges ahead. Yet the uncertainty of what lay before them loomed ever larger. Emma could feel the tide turning, but it wasn't just the choices of others that would impact her future. It was the risks she was willing to take herself. With the strategy session resumed, Emma's mind was a flurry of ideas. However, the question nagged at her. Were they truly ready to face whatever darkness lay at the end of this road? Just as she steeled her resolve, her phone buzzed on the table, an urgent notification. Emma's heart raced. What new revelation awaited her, and could it shift the course of their turbulent landscape once again?
Emma's finger hesitated above her phone, anxiety prickling at the edges of her confidence. The screen lit up with a message from an unknown number, yet the urgency of the notification pulled at her curiosity. She opened it, feeling the familiar rush of adrenaline as she read the contents. A cryptic invitation to meet at a nearby cafe, signed only with an initial, J. "Who is it?" Thomas asked, leaning closer, his brow furrowed in concern. "I don't know," Emma replied, her heart pounding, "but it seems important." For a moment, she considered dismissing it, but then doubt crept in. What if it offered them a critical advantage? What if Charlotte had set her sights on becoming more than a nuisance? Thomas eyed her carefully, gauging the weight of her internal conflict. "You don't have to go. It could be a setup." "No, I need to know what this is about. I can't afford to be left in the dark." The determination in her voice tasted foreign, but it was intoxicating. She was tired of hiding in the shadows. It was time to walk into the light, and whatever lay inside that cafe, she was ready to confront it. After a quick exchange, they agreed to meet there together. Emma's hands trembled slightly as she tucked away her phone, unsure if her resolve was real or simply another mask to wear. This uncertainty stung, but moving forward was essential. She would confront whatever awaited her. As they walked through the bustling city streets, Emma felt an electrifying shift in the air, her posture becoming more assertive with each step. It struck her then that they were already entrenched in a battle, not just against Charlotte, but against their own insecurities and doubts. Every interaction felt like a wager, every decision a costly gamble. When they arrived at the cafe, the atmosphere was charged. Familiar faces buzzed around them, conversations flowed, yet Emma's focus narrowed. She scanned the room, searching for the figure that matched the initial in the text. Doubt waged war against hope. Was this a moment that could change everything, or another detour into chaos? An unassuming figure seated at the far end caught her eye. With tousled hair and a casual demeanor, the person might easily have been overlooked. But as they locked eyes, something stirred within Emma. A glimmer was racing, piecing together the implications of the message. "I just need a moment." Jared watched her, his keen eyes assessing her vulnerability. "What does it say?" he asked, leaning forward, his demeanor charging the atmosphere with anticipation. "Just something I wasn't expecting." Emma hesitated, the urge to detach from the message clashing with the urgency of transparency. She knew what it was like to stay in the dark, and any shards of light were necessary now. "It's from someone else. Seems they know about this situation with Charlotte." "What do they say?" Thomas pressed on, his tone shifting from concern to determination. He was stepping into the role of protector once again, a role Emma had wrestled with, wanting and needing to escape from. "It hints at connections I wasn't aware of, potential allies or enemies." She withheld the specific details. There was still too much information to parse through, and she didn't want to unload anxiety onto Thomas or Jared. "But it feels unsettling. What if it's another trap? Or an opportunity?" Jared countered, his voice gravelly yet persuasive. "You need to decide if the risk is worth it. Every moment you hesitate, Charlotte takes the lead." Emma felt their collective intensity course through her veins, the notion that this was bigger than any single confrontation. Here she was, teetering between fear and empowerment, adrenaline surging as she began to realize her choices would not only affect her fate, but also the dynamic between her and Thomas. While she demanded to step forward, she couldn't ignore how it might magnify their differences in approach. She inhaled deeply, pocketing her phone, its weight a tangible reminder of the chaos swirling around them. "Let's hear what you have to say, Jared. If Charlotte is only the tip of the iceberg, I want to know about the real threat underneath." Jared's posture shifted, a nod of approval for her resolve. "Then pay attention. Charlotte's operations are just a defense mechanism for a much larger player in the industry, someone who's orchestrated a series of moves designed to weaken rival factions, including yours. It's a corrupt chess game, and you've landed on the board in a crucial position. Emma felt her pulse hammer in her ears. Who are we dealing with? It was now or never. The necessity for answers thundered in her mind. As Jared began outlining the connections between Charlotte and this shadowy figure, Emma's analytical mind clicked into gear, dissecting each piece of intelligence like an emerging strategist on a mission. She visualized the network, drawing paths of power and influence. But buried beneath her curiosity was a growing dread. It was both exhilarating and disheartening. The sudden weight of reality that this fight would demand everything of her. Charlotte won't just back down after this, will she? Thomas's worry seeped through, snapping Emma briefly from the strategy spinning in her mind. No, Jared replied calmly. She'll escalate her actions. But it sounds like you've managed to ignite enough flame under her that she's wary. Emma felt a rush of triumph despite the weight of uncertainty pressing against her shoulders. Then we'll just have to reinforce our positions. There's no more hiding. Exactly. Thomas leaned closer, his tone shifting to a decisive optimism. This is your chance, Emma, to rally people around you, to take charge of the narrative, define it before they can. The mention of leadership sent a rush of warmth flooding her insides, igniting a flicker of purpose she never knew she possessed. But that flicker was soon clouded once again, as her phone buzzed with yet another incoming message, this time more intense and demanding. Feeling the air tighten around her, Emma read the new missive. It was a bold challenge from an unexpected source, suggesting a face-to-face meeting with her as an individual player, not just as a representative of her team. It would push her even further into the spotlight, into the role of a negotiator and potential adversary. The stakes were rising, pushing boundaries she had scarcely considered worth stepping over before. It was time for choices to be made. She could feel the crescendo of change reverberating through her, igniting a steeliness she had yet to fully grasp. Emma looked up, determination etched into her features. We need to plan. Whatever happens next, I refuse to lose my chance at this. As her resolve solidified, she felt a strange readiness awakened within her, a nascent certainty that growth often lay just beyond fear. But before they could strategize more, the tension in the room thickened, and a shadow passed by the cafe window, sending a shiver of foreboding through Emma's spine. She turned to see who it was, sensing that this day was far from over. As the shadow receded, a rush of adrenaline surged through Emma, igniting her instincts. She scanned the cafe's entrance, the soft chime of the doorbell ringing in her ears, but there was no one there. Just the usual hum of patrons, their conversations blending into an indistinct murmur, oblivious to the undercurrents swirling around her. Emma, focus. Jared's voice drew her back from the brink of distraction, a firm reminder of the task at hand. His confidence anchored her even in her mounting anxiety. We need to identify what moves we can make next. That message you received, it's an opportunity and a threat. Don't forget that. His words resonated within her. Opportunity and threat, the duality she had to master. She felt an urgency to solidify her position, not just as a player in this chaotic game, but as a leader shaping the narrative. Each decision would echo beyond her immediate circle, and could forge alliances or deepen rivalries. Right, Emma answered, forcing clarity into her thoughts. I need to assess who I can trust and whom I must approach cautiously. The challenge suggests they know my worth, but that can only mean they will try to cripple me before I'm fully aware of my capabilities. She shifted her attention. To Thomas, who appeared unusually still, his eyes clouded with concern. "What is it?" she asked, sensing his internal struggle. "Just thinking," he replied, voice even but revealing a hint of hesitation. "Taking the lead might mean stepping into a spotlight you're not fully ready for. I don't want you to get hurt." Emma felt a flicker of irritation at his protectiveness, But as she contemplated his words, she recognized the underlying truth. Every step she took into this world of power and manipulation could ultimately expose her vulnerabilities. I need to take risks if I'm going to understand this game. Otherwise, people like Charlotte will continue to pull the strings. I agree, Jared chimed in, his voice steadying the moment. But we need a strategy that not only protects you, but also fosters your influence. It's time to leverage what you know and what you stand for. The challenge lay ahead, but Emma could sense the transformative energy building within her. Let's not dwell on what I lack, she asserted. Instead, let's capitalize on my existing strengths. I can connect with those who may share my vision or opposing interests to Charlotte. If they're right, then I need to unearth those connections before they can manipulate them. As she pieced together her strategic framework, Emma felt an awakening, a fierce dedication to assert her identity, both personally and professionally. The stakes weren't just about her success, they were about fostering a narrative larger than herself. Let's identify potential allies I can reach out to. List everyone, industry contacts, potential whistleblowers, anyone who has faced Charlotte's wrath. Emma's voice grew stronger, her determination tangible. She was ready to push past the hesitation that had once crippled her. They dove into discussion, the environment around them dwindling, leaving only the thrill of camaraderie in their planning. Names and ideas floated between them, each exchange building Emma's resolve. But the facade of control wavered when another buzz from her phone broke the moment. This time it was a straightforward text. Meet me alone at the warehouse, 8 p.m. Bring only what you can afford to lose. The message hit her like a punch. It didn't read like an invitation. It was a warning. Emma's excitement vanished, replaced with a rush of dread that reverberated through her. Alone? With an unknown adversary? It felt reckless. What did it say? Jared asked, perceptive to the shift in Emma's energy. Something about a meeting. It's chilling, she admitted, heart racing. The implications of this invitation leaving her exposed were daunting, yet there was a flicker of resolve igniting inside. Shouldn't you decline? Thomas interjected, concern coding his words. It's too dangerous. Emma weighed the options. To refuse would mean ceding control to Charlotte and the mysterious figure looming in the shadows. But to confront could reshape her position entirely. No, she said, startling both men. It's time I stopped playing it safe. I need to learn what they know and confront the threat head-on. The tension thickened as each of them recognized the path ahead was fraught with peril and promise. Emma felt herself stepping toward the unknown, deeper into a role she had never imagined would demand so much from her. With her heart pounding and courage ignited, Emma squared her shoulders, casting one last look at her friends. Tonight marks a turning point. I won't back down, and whatever happens, I'm going to face it. As she prepared to leave, she knew she was standing at the edge of her transformation. One step deeper into this world, into the chaos that awaited. This was where her journey truly began. But as she turned toward the door, a chilling shadow flickered behind her, and her gut tightened with the sense that someone, somewhere, was watching. Emma's heart raced as she navigated the evening streets toward the warehouse, the flickering streetlights casting unsettling shadows. The decision to meet with an unknown entity was one she wouldn't have considered mere weeks ago. The confidence that surged within her felt foreign yet exhilarating, a reflection of the mindset she needed to survive in this complex world. Her mind replayed Jared's and Thomas's words, each note of caution echoing like a counterpoint to her newfound determination. She needed to seize this moment and transform doubt into her greatest asset. With every step, she conjured images of her potential allies, the resources she could cultivate, and the future she might craft if she played her cards right. Navigating through the oppressive darkness was as much a journey through her self-perception as it was a physical trek to the meeting. What loomed ahead was not just a confrontation with an adversarial figure, but a reckoning with her own fears, the nagging self-doubt that had often clouded her judgment. She recalled the moments over the past few days where her weaknesses had threatened to pull her under. Those moments of vulnerability had been a catalyst for growth. It wasn't enough to shield behind. She had to embrace them, understand how they could inform her actions. The warehouse came into view, its weathered facade looming large against the night sky. A shudder of apprehension ran through her as she approached the entrance. She hesitated, grappling with the pulls of impulse and reason. Was she truly prepared for what lay beyond those doors? The thrill of the unknown began to morph into cold, hard anxiety. "Breathe," she whispered to herself, grounding her resolve as she stepped inside. The dim interior smelled of grease and steel, and the shadows danced as she scanned her surroundings. The vibe was industrial, harsh, unforgiving. But within the coldness of the space, Emma felt the resilience building within her. She could outmaneuver Charlotte and her ilk. She had to trust her instincts. The first thing she noticed was the figure standing in the far corner, half illuminated by a single overhead light. As she approached, the figure morphed into a recognizable shape. It was a man she had crossed paths with before, an associate of
Charlotte's, Tom. The tension in the air tightened as they locked eyes. "Emma?" he acknowledged, his expression inscrutable. There was an ambiguous familiarity to him, as if they shared a history filled with unseen rivalries. "Glad you could make it." "Let's get to the point, Tom," she replied, steadier than she felt. "What do you want?" He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, a smirk playing at the corners of his lips. "I want information, and perhaps a bit of collaboration." A knot formed in her stomach. The very thought of collaborating with someone connected to Charlotte felt treacherous. Yet, the prospect of gaining an ally, even a reluctant one, was a tempting risk. "And what makes you think I'd ever consider that?" "Because, Emma," he said, stepping closer, "you're right in the game. You have potential that others are already recognizing. I'm here to help you navigate the treacherous waters ahead, but it comes at a price." His words hung in the air, thick with implications. Emma's mind raced, considering the weight of his offer and the ramifications of accepting anything from someone like him. Was it possible to wade through murky waters without losing herself in the process? "What's the price?" she asked, testing both her resolve and his sincerity. "You'll have to give me a glimpse into your plans against Charlotte, and share what you've gathered from the allies you think you can muster. It's a small price for knowledge that could protect you." Caught between the allure of gaining intelligence and the risk of surrendering her strategy, Emma felt the tug of war within her intensify. This wasn't just about the next move. It was about laying the groundwork for her transformation into a leader who could dictate her path. As she considered his proposal, Emma sensed the magnetic pull of opportunity before her. But was she willing to dance with the devil? The darkness around her felt stifling, and yet she couldn't shake off the anticipation sparking within. The question remained, in this game of power, where alliances were as fragile as glass, could she truly trust Tom to be the ally she needed, or would he ultimately turn on her? "Tell me what you know," Emma said at last, her voice steady and resolute, preparing to dive deeper into both the conversation and the shadows surrounding them. Yet, as Tom began to speak, a flash of movement drew her attention, a flicker at the edge of her vision. Someone else was here, hidden in the depths of the warehouse. The stakes were soaring, and Emma realized she was no longer just part of a game. She was a vital piece on the chessboard of her own life, and every move now dictated her survival. As the shadows wove deeper into the warehouse, Emma's heart pounded with a mixture of resolution and dread. She was no longer the orphan hiding behind her art. She was stepping into a world where stakes were high and identities were malleable. The flicker in the corner. Emma felt the familiar waves of insecurity wash over her, but they were met by the cascade of confidence she had developed over the past weeks. "You underestimating me is the one flaw you haven't learned to fix." Tom's eyes flickered between them, sensing the brewing storm, yet he refrained from interjecting. Emma had granted herself a voice. Her identity was no longer tied to loyalty or fear.
"Let's make this clear, Charlotte. You've played your games, but I'm tired of being a pawn in your narrative. It ends now." At that moment, Emma embraced her transformation, her artistic dreams no longer tainted by doubt. She envisioned reclaiming her identity, not just as an architect of buildings, but as an architect of her life. The confrontation reached a fever pitch, both women's resolve tangible in the air, their frustrations colliding. "You think you can stand against me?" Charlotte's confidence faltered under the weight of Emma's steeliness, illuminated by her steadfastness. "You don't know the battles I've fought," she spat bitterly. "Oh, I'm just beginning," Emma remarked, stepping forward. "And in this fight, you'll discover that adversity is a great teacher. I'm ready to confront whatever comes next." As the tension tightened, Charlotte stepped back, her bravado slipping as she took in Emma's newfound strength. "You're making a mistake, Emma. I'll reveal how quickly this can unravel." "Then let's make it a challenge," Emma countered. "I intend to put my plans in motion. While you thrive in shadows, I'm stepping into the light." The realization dawned on her. Emma had not only faced Charlotte, but transformed her weaknesses into strengths. The tide had turned, control fundamentally slipped from Charlotte's grasp and into Emma's hands as she leaned into her potential. "Keep your distance," Emma commanded, a daring edge in her voice. "Because the next time we meet, it won't simply be a confrontation, it will be a reckoning." As Charlotte retreated into the shadows, empowerment surged through Emma. She was no longer weighed down by external expectations. She was architecting her own future, breathing life into years of aspirations that she had almost lost. Turning to Tom, she felt a sense of clarity tighten her resolve. "Let's strategize. I'm ready to expose the truth and reforge my identity." She was not merely ready to confront her past, but willing to shape her future. With each plan they charted, Emma cemented her place in a landscape long kept by greater forces. This journey from doubt to determination had carved out not only her professional path, but her personal identity. She felt the currents of growth coursing through her, propelling her toward new horizons she had once deemed unattainable. "Tonight marks a new beginning," Emma declared, and as she stepped out of the warehouse, the night filled with clouds began to part. She could already see the dawn creeping on the horizon, an invitation to a future defined by her terms, ambitions, and strength. This was her moment, her triumph, and she would rise. And as she walked forward into the light, a sense of certainty illuminated her heart. Emma had become the architect of her own fate, a journey founded on growth, courage, and clarity, a story waiting to unfold. With her identity firmly in hand, the adventure that lay ahead was an open canvas filled with infinite possibilities. As an impending chapter opened with this resolution, Emma positioned herself firmly in the light, knowing that the journey was not only about the destination, it was about claiming each step along the way. Your story, like Emma's, deserves to be told. You must embrace the journey of transformation. To not miss out on captivating experiences of growth and change, subscribe immediately to the channel. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm so true stories can continue to inspire. Comment below your reactions and theories about Emma's bold choices. And finally, share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see how the journey from struggle to strength unfolds. Don't wait even one more second to spread the strength of personal overcoming stories.